Hey guys, welcome to the Zane Friesner YouTube channel. Today we are cam swapping my Supra. I'm sorry I didn't really film the beginning of it. We're already like 3/4 of the way done. We have the old cam pulled out, the new cam in. I have the front accessories all put back in it, and right now my buddy Tim is actually changing the springs. But here, as you can see, so the front's put back together. The springs are all done on this side. Push rods are in, rockers next, and then valve cover and all that back together. The cam we went with is a Stage 2 Sloppy Mechanics cam. It came with some pack springs. One of the reason we decided to change the cam was because the old cam was just honestly too big for the setup in the car. I mean, the springs were also in the old setup. The cam was too large and the springs were stock. So to change the springs and some of the other things to make that cam work, it was just the same price, if not cheaper, to actually just go to a smaller cam, which would work better with my setup. So that's what I decided to do. Like I said, sorry that I didn't really film any of it, to be honest, but you can see now, like I said, Tim has the one side done and he's now doing this side. He works all day long in the shop. He's an actual mechanic, so he's taking a break right now because, you know, he worked all day and it's still hot here, so giving him a little break. But when he's done, I'll show you guys what he's doing.
Alright, so the comp cam that was in there, it really didn't fit his combo very well because he wants more of a streetable type, almost stock type vehicle. Something he can take and just hop in and go down the highway for 1,000 miles and drag race a little bit here and there, street race some. And the power band of that old cam was basically started at like 3,000 plus up to, I think it was good up to like 7,000, a little over 7,000 RPM, which, you know, is great for a drag car, but it's not real great for a street car and something that you want to hop in and go drive. Whoever built the engine in the past, I mean, it was a fresh rebuilt 5.3, but they didn't change the valve springs. They just ordered some rebuilt heads and they had stock valve springs in there, and they weren't really working very well with that cam because lift and duration and everything was just pretty well way maxed out for those springs. We thought about just putting springs on it and just doing that, but he was also having an issue where the LS have a plastic lifter tray cup in there. It keeps the lifters from spinning on the lobes. And the trays were actually, at full lift, were actually rocking just a little bit on that bolt. And basically, in order to remedy that, we would have been looking at probably like a link bar lifter or something of that fashion. And that would mean the heads have to come back off, and he's really not looking into doing that, which we probably should have done valve springs and all that stuff before when we had it all apart, but somebody didn't want to spend the money on it.
Me, I definitely didn't.
So now he ordered a Elgin SS2 Sloppy Stage 2 cam. I think it's a 1840p or something like that, I believe is the part number. And then they came with, it's a kit, it came with some like comp cams, push rods, and some packed valve springs to replace the stock springs in there. And that's what we're kind of doing here with this jerry-rigged. This is actually a tool they use to do valve springs on small block Chevys, which we're getting to work on the LS stuff. It's a real pain in the ass. And then I've also got this old rinky-dink spring compressor also to do it this way too, so you don't have to remove the heads again to do the valve springs. But we're getting by. It sucks. It's really hot and humid today, and I am freaking dying. But anyway, in the end, this is going to save them some money, and the cam, it's still going to have some chop to it, but power band basically power range for this cam's a lot lower, a little more streetable, and he'll be able to enjoy the car and do what he wants to do with it, which is drive it and enjoy it and maybe get a little bit of fuel economy out of that, and then you know, it just seemed like a decent all-around cam, and it's a real cheap kit that we put in. It was like $600 or something.
550.
550, yeah. And that came with all the gaskets, the valve springs, the camshaft, and push rods. I don't remember what else it was. Oh, a new bolt for the balancer, stuff like that. I don't know if he's filmed any of the camshaft install, which no, doesn't look like he did. So, but that's already done with. It's really not hard to do the cam swap on one of these. Really, a piece of cake. You know, there's you can do it with some 5/16 dowel rods through oil galleys and hold the lifters, and you can pull the cam and shove the new cam in, and away you go. You don't have to pull the heads off them, as long as you're not planning on changing the lifters when you do that. So, which we didn't. We're leaving the stock lifters and stock trays on there. The lift and duration and everything on this cam is a lot smaller, and it will be fine running the stock lifters and trays and stuff in it. So, but with any luck, we'll get this thing done and fired up pretty soon, and then I guess it'd be off to finish getting the tune done on it, and we also got to do gears in it too. He's wanting to do those, I think. It's got 430s in it, and I think he's wanting to go with a 354 or a 373 gear or something like that. So, just trying to make it more streetable for the guy so he can actually enjoy his car, and not have to feel like he's fixing to go drag racing just to go get groceries and stuff. So, pretty much where we're at with that. Ready? Mm-hmm. All right, so this is the new valve seal. This is the new valve spring. Take the valve seal, push it over the push rod, the valve stem, and onto the valve guide. It seats in there, and the spring just sets on that cup there. And then you take the old retainer. We actually reused the retainers from the original springs. These pack springs are just drop-in replacements over the stock ones. And that just fits on there. And hold up on me here. This is kind of a pain in the ass getting this on there. This tool just kind of pivots on the bolt like that, and this bolt threads into the cylinder head right there. You see it, Zane? And it's kind of tricky. Like I said, this tool is not exactly right for this job on these LSs, but it can be used. It was originally designed for, I think, small block Chevys and Fords and stuff like that. But we were making it work with this because I guess we're just being lazy and don't have the proper tool or something. Zane getting the tightwad again or something, probably. I was kind of tightening it down a little bit. Let's see if I got it right. And this is the tricky part. These little C's here, this actually, if I had a valve out, I could show you, these little grooves kind of lock into the valve stem on the valve. And they're wedge shaped, so they wedge into that retainer in there, and they go together like that, and that's what holds that valve from falling out. With those old springs, it was very possible that it could have had valve float, and when that happens, sometimes these keepers could pop out of that retainer and allow that valve to drop down in the cylinder at high RPM and become mushed up metal garbage and turn the piston into hunks of nasty aluminum in the oil pan, or some other nasty, terrible thing that could happen to an engine. I'll see if I can get this in there without dropping them. And yes, they're a giant pain in the ass when you drop them on the ground, because they turn into like freaking little rocks or something. You just can't see them. Pull this down, and it sets down in that groove. Fat fingers to push that in there. Like that. Let it up. And you take your bolt out. Voila. And it's in there. Okay, so Zane informed me that I needed to explain the how I'm keeping the valves from falling down in the cylinder when I take all the valve spring and keeper and retainers off. What I'm doing is I'm taking this little bitty rope and about that much of it, and we have the cylinder down, the piston is down in the bottom of the cylinder that I can tell right now. We have the spark plugs out. You find the hole for it. A little hair on that son of a bitch, I can find it. And then you just take this rope and you slowly feed it into the plug hole. And this takes a minute, and it's a pain in the ass. A lot easier to do this with compressed air, but Zane doesn't have the air compressor handy, so we gotta do it the old school way. But you take this rope, if I can ever get it back in there all the way, and I need to go down some more of that piston. And I think I'm getting closer. And we're going and going, just inch by inch. Now I'm standing on the rope or something. There we go. All right. And you want to do this with a clean rope, because if you use a dirty rope, you're going to put dirt in your cylinder, and that's not very cool. You don't want to do that.
That's a pro tip. Remember that. Write it down.
Always use a clean rope. That's important. All right, so we got about 3 feet of rope in this sumbitch. Excuse the language, sorry. In case there's children and ladies watching. And you turn the crank until it comes up tight. And what happens is you got 3 feet of rope coiled up in the cylinder, in there, and it comes up, the piston comes up, and it'll take that rope and kind of compress it. You don't want to get too crazy with tightening it up against there, but it just comes up and touches basically. And what it'll do, it'll hold those valves, the valve heads, up against the combustion chamber on the cylinder head and keep them from falling down into the cylinder. Because if that fell in the cylinder, then we would have a hell of a time getting the valves or the valve back up into the head without pulling the head off. And we don't want to pull the head off because we're being lazy. Simple enough.
Okay, we got the springs in it, the push rods, the rockers, they're all tight. So it's getting dark and I don't have garage lights, so tomorrow I just have to put the valve covers back in it, spark plugs in it, the wires, coils, and it should be good to see if it'll start. So that'll be tomorrow's video, but thanks for watching.